Hello everyone, I am Rahul and today we are going to talk about the supernatural beings called vampire hunters, and in modern time the vampire hunters are very popular. So let's begin. A vampire hunter or vampire slayer is a character in folklore and fiction, who specializes in finding and destroying vampires and sometimes other supernatural creatures. A vampire hunter is usually described as having extensive knowledge of vampires and other monstrous creatures, including their powers and weaknesses, and uses this knowledge to effectively combat them. In many works, vampire hunters are simply humans with more than average knowledge about the occult, while in others they are themselves supernatural beings, having superhuman abilities. A well-known and influential vampire hunter is Professor Abraham Van Helsing, a character in Bram Stoker's 1897 horror novel, Dracula.
For one who has not lived even a single lifetime, you are a wise man, Van Helsing.
In folklore, professional or semi-professional vampire hunters played some part in the vampire beliefs of the Balkans, especially in Bulgarian, Serbian, and Romani folk beliefs. In Bulgarian, the terms used to designate them included gloglet, hawthorn, the species of wood used for the stake, vampirdzhilya, vampire, tzhadazhilya, svetacher. Citation needed. Some carried a kit that used mallet, stake, crucifix. If part of a church, it included holy water, holy oil, etc. However, the most important things it carried were items such as rope, crowbars, or even pistol. They were usually either born on Saturday, then called Sabbatarians, Bulgarian Sabotnichev, Greek Sabationoi, or the offspring of a vampire, and a woman, typically his widow, called a Dampir in Romani, or a Vampiravi in Serbian. It was also believed that someone born on a Saturday could see a vampire when it was otherwise invisible, and sometimes other supernatural entities as well, similarly for the Dampir. In the case of the Sabbatarians, it was believed in some places that they needed to be fed meat from a sheep killed by a wolf, Bulgarian Vokoedin. This would enable them not to fear the things that only they were able to see. In Croatian and Slovenian legends, the villages had their own vampire hunters that were called kresniks, whose spirits were able to turn into animals at night to fight off the vampire or kudlak. Some carried a kit that used mallet, stake, crucifix. If part of a church, it included holy water, holy oil, etc. However, the most important things it carried were items such as rope, crowbars, or even pistol. In fiction, the vampire hunter has found new popularity in modern fiction and popular culture. The most widely known example of a vampire hunter is Abraham Van Helsing, of the novel Dracula, and in other works of fiction adapting or modifying that work. Other more recent figures include Buffy the Vampire Slayer Summers from the television show and film of the same name. Buffy's spin-off series Angelus also focused on a vampire hunter. The titular star, Angel the world's champion, a vampire himself, is often portrayed battling vampires. Vampire hunters have also appeared in video games, such as Castlevania. as well as being knowledgeable about vampire lore. Vampire hunters in fiction are often armed with an eclectic mix of items and weapons which are designed to take maximum advantage of the monster's traditional weaknesses. These have included firearms with silver ammunition, appropriate religious symbols, crossbows that fire all wood bolts, and even water guns filled with blessed holy water in the movies The Lost Boys and From Dusk Till Dawn. The organizational strength of depicted vampire hunters can vary wildly. Most hunter characters are in small groups working alone and in secret. By contrast, the Helsing organization, in the I'm television series, Helsing is a British government paramilitary strike force with access to troops, heavy combat vehicles and weapons, and even allied vampires. While predominantly depicted as human, examples of other types of vampire hunters also exist. Vampiric figures, having a mix of human and vampire blood, are a popular form. A lizard from the Castlevania series, and the eponymous hero of the Blade series of comic books, movies, television series, and I'm are both examples of vampire hunters. Even rarer are vampire hunters that are vampires themselves. Two examples of this type can be found in Morbius from Ultimate Spider-Man and Zero Kiryu in the manga and I'm series Vampire Knight. The image of the vampire hunter is often a mysterious and dramatic avenging hero, an eccentric extremist, a mad scientist, or sometimes a mix of both. A hunter may be a heroic figure, a villain from the perspective of the vampire, a lonesome avenger, or sometimes, although not usually, a bounty hunter-style character, hunting vampires for profit. Vampire hunters have also popularly been depicted as hunting various creatures such as werewolves, demons, and other forms of undead as well. Others have been depicted as mages and cyborgs. Vampire hunters are often associated with or members of the clergy, holy orders, or other religious organizations which may be dedicated to fighting vampires, demons, and other supernatural forces. Vampire hunting, as a family tradition or birthright, is a popular use of the archetype in fiction, such as the Belmont family from the Castlevania series. Some hunters devote their entire lives to the eradication of vampires, for others it is just a strange hobby.